In this Atlas Fallen review, I'll be taking a look at Deck 13's brand new action-adventure game. What is Atlas Fallen? How does it compare to The Surge and The Surge 2? And is it worth your time? I'll be covering these things and more in this review. Atlas Fallen takes place in a post-apocalyptic world where humanity's been oppressed by the malicious power and influence of the Sun God. A world that was once known to be a place where humans and wildlife prospered has now been turned into a desert of destruction and overrun by deadly wraiths. The story begins as you take on the role of an unnamed human, a brave slave who stumbles upon an artifact known as the Gauntlet that gives you unimaginable power to manipulate sand with the help of a mysterious entity. Now as a Gauntlet bearer, you set forth on a mission to destroy the Sun God to save what's left of humanity and to free the world from his corruption. The pacing of Atlas Fallen felt appropriate and the story was relatively straightforward. Cutscenes show you the right amount of content that easily helps you understand the lore and backstories of notable characters, which include secondary quests containing additional narratives, and this is further expanded by reading and listening to journals that you find scattered in the world. However, the story is not original or, dare I say, groundbreaking. The tone of the story is familiar, and I couldn't help but compare some moments to the game to Forspoken just because of some similarities to it, like how the protagonist comes across an empowered gauntlet that houses an entity that you speak to. While it did succeed in reeling me in for the most part, I do believe that more could have been done in the way of exploration, including a bit more variety. There is really no motivation to continue exploring once you've completed the main story other than some side quests, which are not extensive. Deck 13 is a developer known for The Surge and The Surge 2, games that both have exceptional gameplay and combat, and if there's one thing that stood out to me in Atlas Fallen, it was this. However, it features basic character creation, 3 weapons, very little amount of armor sets, various trinkets, and an easy crafting mechanic which left a lot to be desired. Character creation is pretty simple. You choose from a limited number of visual presets and alter some facial features like shape, size, and color. Personally, having any character creation at all is better than none, but it's pretty bare bones character creator, and you shouldn't expect a lot of detail. You'll probably compare Atlas Fallen's combat features to other games you've played, but that's not a bad thing because there are some unique ideas that players will find enjoyable. The core element of it all is momentum, which is presented as a blue gauge at the bottom of your health bar. It is divided into 3 segments and it starts to fill when you are fighting. This is called ascending, which determines your effectiveness in battle as it will exponentially alter aspects such as the physicality of your weapons, moves, stats, and skills. Ascending is only a temporary effect that is maintained in combat, but if you stop fighting or take specific hits, your momentum starts to deplete and removes all effects you've gained through ascending. What's great about momentum is that it gives the player options on how to strategically approach combat. The reason why I say this is because as you ascend, you start to power up, but at the same time, you take more damage. And with that, the game puts you in a tug-of-war situation of choosing between risk and reward. Is gaining that much power worth it, or is it better to play it safe? But there is more to Atlas Fallen than just momentum, and there is a decent amount of RPG customization that allows the player to create different builds by choosing from a selection of armor, perks, essence stones, and idols. Armor provides defense, and each can be upgraded to increase their power level, stats, and unlocks perks, which are armor trinkets that grant passive effects. Unfortunately, armor is limited to equipping a full set and is not divided into different pieces, and I was quite shocked to see that there are only a few in the game. I wish there were more because personally I did not fancy some of them aesthetically, but if you're worried if you can customize your clothing, there is an option to visually change them through transmogrification, dyeing parts of the garment, and equipping cosmetic items. Essence stones are active and passive skills that also correlate with momentum. There are 100 plus essence stones that you can find in the game, each having its unique properties, and these are divided into 3 tiers that specialize in 5 categories. Each tier level of a stone correlates to the first, second, or third segment of the momentum gauge, meaning you can only equip tier 1 stones with the first segment of your momentum. How it plays out is that you can equip 1 active stone and up to 3 or 2 passive stones per tier, and you'll need to build momentum and reach the position where the stones are placed for their effects to work. As long as you're able to maintain the progress of momentum, the effects of the stones will always be active. I personally had fun trying out each essence stone, and it allowed me to try different builds that work best with the weapons I used. These stones are easy to find as you can locate them in many ways such as loot, enemy drops, quest rewards, or by crafting them. I appreciated the variety here, and I foresee that people who play this game will spend most of their time hunting down an essence stone that fits perfectly for their playstyle, and I can't wait to see the different builds that people come up with. And finally, there are about 20 idols you can find, and these are also trinkets that change the effect of your healing abilities, such as adding an extra charge, increasing the amount of health gained, and more. Overall, despite the lack of some itemization like weapons and armor and the distinct gameplay similarities in some areas, I appreciated how you can experiment with different combat tactics that lie behind simplified mechanics. The primary enemies you fight in Atlas Fallen are wraiths, monsters formed by sand and created by the Sun God. And while they sound cool, they were rather lackluster as a whole. Fighting wraiths is similar to the monster mechanics in Monster Hunter, and they are divided into different types: lesser, greater, and colossal. Lesser wraiths are small monsters that are usually seen in a pack, while greater and colossal wraiths are huge beasts that pose more threat and require you to destroy their body parts to make them vulnerable. The difference here between this and Monster Hunter, though, is that you can't carve their parts for items. Instead, you're just rewarded with specific essence stones or fusion materials that are guaranteed drops when they are defeated. Wraiths are categorized into two groups: regulars and elites. Most regular wraiths commonly spawn in the world, while elite wraiths are limited activities that you hunt down in specific locations. When I discovered that there were elites, I was excited to fight different looking monsters, but what I found instead were just slightly stronger versions of already existing ones, which was disappointing. And while it is challenging when you first encounter a new wraith, to be sure, over time you will fight them almost everywhere and you will easily learn their moves, which eventually drains the excitement and challenge from facing them. Variety is what's lacking, and I really wish there had been more enemy types. When it comes to exploration, let me begin by clarifying that Atlas Fallen is not an open world game, but it features a semi-open world that is divided into 4 regions. It's important to set this expectation because some have previously mentioned that it is. In my initial reaction when the world opened up, I was like, wow, there is a lot to do, because you can find different activities, side quests, errands, platforming, and secrets, all that can easily distract you as you explore. And that's good. This means there's something that you can expect to do other than complete the story. However, here's where it fell short. If you finish the main campaign before doing all the side quests and exploration, even though you can go back and do them, there is no real reason to. There is no difficulty mode unlocked or New Game Plus mode, so you lack any real motivation to do this, and this can make an already shortish game feel even shorter. I loved the sand surfing mechanic though, where you get to swerve and glide through the sands. The movement was smooth, and even the abilities that I eventually gained that unlocked more platforming piqued my interest, as I was able to discover intriguing locations and handsome rewards. Moving into audiovisual and performance, I'll start off by commending the voice acting in the game. All the NPCs are voiced differently, and I enjoyed the conviction and emotion exuded by the NPCs, including whenever I listened to the audio log in the journal. When it came to the background music, each area had a specific tone that felt appropriate, and I admired how it quickly shifted to a battle theme whenever I'd encounter a wraith. The sound effects were also good, though some of them, like running on pavement, didn't quite sound right. Additionally, occasionally when I was in the menu, I'd get an audio jitter that was distracting, or sometimes the battle music would stop while in the heat of the moment. These are probably bugs though, and should be sorted out eventually. The world of Atlas Fallen is gratifying to behold, and it surprised me how alive it felt considering that the game takes place in a semi-open world that is completely filled with desert sand, remnants of structures, and whatever is left of flora and fauna. I found myself wandering around the ends of the map to find any secret and to observe how each area looked different because it changes depending on your progression of the main campaign, side quest, and overall gameplay. Visually, the game looks good, even though the entirety of the world is covered in sand and ruins, and I appreciated the presence of vibrant colors coming from the mountains, trees, and even the sky. Each wraith looked unique, and they were designed well since they featured a mixed inspiration of both creatures we know and of alien life forms. What struck me most are the visual effects of the weapons and skills coming from the essence stones. I could see how smoothly my weapon transformed as I ascended, and it was satisfying to watch the different effects like summoning a tornado, releasing a thunder wave, calling a massive hammer from the sky, and ultimately performing a flashy finishing move. Atlas Fallen is developed using Deck 13's in-house engine Fledge, which was the same engine used in other games they've created, such as The Surge 2. Playing on this engine, I did not have any issues with its performance on PC, and I ran consistently above 60 FPS on a 3060 GPU. The game didn't crash, and the load times were fair. But there was texture pop-in, which was distracting and disappointing. Lords of the Fallen and The Surge 2 had great graphics that had little to no pop-in, but I suspect it may have something to do with the more open-worldish nature of the game and having to load more assets at once. Atlas Fallen is a linear game, but doesn't completely limit the player with regards to which order you complete side quests and activities, but you are still bound to a straightforward path to reach the end. However, you can still return to other biomes and clear out the additional content at your own pace after completing the main story if you desire. But I'm afraid to say that upon completing the main story and side quest content, there is nothing left it has to offer but to join a friend through online co-op or experiment with creating different builds using a variety of essence stones. There is no New Game Plus, as I mentioned before, and weapons and armor are extremely limited, so there is no real reason to play Atlas Fallen a second time. For $49.99 USD on PC via Steam, the price is a tad bit high for the amount and quality of gameplay you're getting, and I'd consider $39.99 USD a much better price to pick this game up at. Final thoughts. Atlas Fallen caught my interest initially with its unique core combat feature momentum, easy to understand mechanics, and visually appealing effects, but it wasn't enough to completely impress me as I found myself constantly comparing it to other games it was clearly inspired by, but that it didn't really innovate on. A lack of itemization in the weapons and armor department also moved the game away from the RPG space a bit and more into the action realm, which I don't think was a great move. I generally had a good time playing Atlas Fallen though, as I experienced its smooth combat and pleasing visuals, and I would consider recommending the game to players who just want something simple and fun, or to those looking for a decent co-op game. However, I'm not sure I can recommend it at its current price, especially when there are just so many better games available at the moment. Atlas Fallen is a title that misses the mark when it comes to originality and amount of content delivered, but it just manages to save itself with solid combat, good visuals and audio, and pretty good PC performance. A day went by for only the most diehard Deck 13 fans, while everyone else should wait for a sale and some time to free up from their very busy gaming calendar.